Hello and welcome back to our series where we're building a people and culture management system. This series is brought to you by Prairie HR Solutions. My name is Jake Finger, founder and principal consultant here at Prairie HR Solutions. And in this video, I'd like to finish up our spinner thingy we got going on right here. And what we have, for those of y'all who are just joining us here, we've created a spinner. And this spinner is essentially just a div that is hidden or set to none by default. And it's this right here. And it sits in an overlay to make it stand out ahead of, on top of the rest of the page there. And then we created a function, and this function controls the spinner. So it essentially runs an if statement. If it's set to none, it'll set it to block. And by default, it's set to none. And we also gave it a timer to where it will automatically set to none after 3,000 milliseconds or 3 seconds have passed. So now in this video, what I'd like to do is actually kind of style that thing a little bit instead of just a circle. I'm not a fan. If you are, please, by all means, just leave it there. But I'd like to show at least a different way on how it is that we can style it differently or do a different approach if you're not using Bootstrap itself. And also, I want to take this spinner control function and call it in different places, because right now we only have it called when somebody selects a drop down here for our divisions. And we're going to need to do something, a little bit differently. So instead of having it called right here, let's just have it called as soon as this event is triggered. We'll have it called there. And then we need it to be called once the page opens. So we don't want it to be, I know we had it down here, but I mean, honestly, that's not the best place for it because we want it to run right off the bat. So the first thing that it does when it realizes that the DOM content is loaded is this going to create that spinner. And then we're also going to need to create the spinner here. And that should take care of our spinner firing. So let's come back over here and refresh it. I know spinners seem a little complicated, but they're really not. They're not as bad as things happen. Okay, so it's still not firing up here. We can fix that. Okay, so it's running on the division. Should run on the job title, and it should run on the filter. Okay, so it's not firing on the filter and this piece. Okay, so it's not firing on the filter because it's part of this DOM. So instead of putting it here in the DOM, once the DOM content's loaded, we want to find our popcom divisions and put it right there because that the time it elapses. So what we had it up here. We just have a lot of stuff going on here with this filter drop down and then this content load. Instead, because this unfortunately is it's at the bottom of our DOM and it's referring to functions inside the top of our DOM, our header. So that may be something that's kind of throwing that off. So let's instead use this. Essentially, when it fires this population comp div drop down, this is populating all the pieces inside that drop down box. It's going to fire this spinner control, and that'll be fine. And then also this get com filter event. So when that changes, it'll fire that. And then everything else should be good. So let's try that and see if that cleared it up. Okay, so it fires it, good. Now it loads and then it goes away. Okay, so I can live with that. That works. So now let's try this filter thing. Okay, nope, we're still gonna have to listen to the filter. Yeah, we'll have to find out when we want the filter to fire. No, actually, you know what's interesting though is this filter doesn't take very long at all to work. So it's almost happening so fast to where it wouldn't fire that anyway, which is fine. We won't need that because that happens fairly quickly as well. So really we just have the division, the job title, and when it opens up. Okay, so let's leave that alone. Yeah, let's leave that alone. We can figure out a different spot to put it. There's a little bit of a lag there with this pop div control. Let's actually put it after it does this filter drop down. After it runs that event listener, and let's see how that looks. Because we don't want it to get in the way of populating these. There we go. 3. Yeah, we don't want it to get in the way of populating these or get skipped over, because for optimization purposes, there can be a tendency to where you run things so many different times that it tries to condense it for optimization purposes, and things can either get dropped or pushed aside or existed differently in your cache that is trying to pull. So I like where it is now. It seems to fire it perfectly, and it goes away when everything's populated. So I can live with that. So now let's do something to style this a little bit. So when we come over to our Bootstrap here, and we're looking at our spinners here, you'll see that they have built-in colors, and it uses a current color for its border color, which means you can customize it with a text color. So essentially you use this text danger, text success. But what that does is that only does this, not necessarily, because it looks like what it's doing is it has a black background and then it just doesn't complete the circle. So that circle is kind of transparent there or missing, and it spins around it. So actually what I think I'm going to do is we could go through this and then grab text success or text color and start coloring it that way. Or what we could do is actually take the opportunity to show you how to create a spinner individually, because that way, everybody uses these little spinners. Everybody, they nearly always look alike. Every once in a while you'll find one that's kind of cool that, someone put some thought and effort into it. But for the most part, it's just this little broken circle spinning around. So let me show you how to actually create a spinner, because that's actually what I like doing. And we'll do it with Prairie HR's kind of branding. It'll be kind of the same thing, but you'll be able to modify it if you wanted to. So let's come back over here to our total rewards page. So we do want the overlay, and we can use this class, but instead of using this class spinner border and style width whatever thing from Bootstrap, what I would like us to do is to just create our own. So what we really need is the spinner, the thing that turns, and then a spinner circle. And the spinner circle is what turns kind of with it. So it's really in two pieces. So instead of, let's just get rid of this thing. And let's create a new div. And let's give this div an ID of spinner. Let's make sure that our ID actually matches what was there. Okay, spinner border, spinner overlay. Okay. So we didn't have an ID. That's fine. We do now. Okay, so let's give this div an ID, and this ID is going to be a class, and that class is simply going to be the spinner. Now, we're not dipping into Bootstrap here. What we're doing is we're doing outside of Bootstrap, and then we will create the CSS to make this work on our own here. Okay, so that's our spinner. So now we need a spinner circle. So let's create another div, and let's give this a class of spinner circle. Just call it that. So now we have a spinner and a spinner circle. And this is the piece that we're needing, the part that goes around and around and around. This spinner circle is just a circle behind it. And then let's make sure we have our visual loading. Yep, that's fine. This indicates that it's hidden. It's visually hidden, but it's going to pop up in screen readers. Okay, and let's make sure that we have everything set. Okay, yep. And then flex, yep. Div, yep. And then our span. Okay, good. Okay, nope. So we're missing something here. Okay, so we're missing a div. Okay, so we need another div here, right there. Close that out. There we go. Oops. There we go. There we go. So now our divs are good. So now if we took this off a block, we wouldn't really see anything because we don't have the CSS built for this. So let's go over and build that CSS. So we like our overlay. Let's leave our overlay here. But let's get rid of this because we don't have a spinner border anymore. What we have is a spinner and a spinner circle. And what we want to isolate this by is, we want to grab this class and this class. So let's first create our spinner. Let's select our spinner class. And what we're going to want to do with our spinner class is, again, make it position fixed. We want it there. And then we want our top, because we want it to sit at the middle, we want it to be 50%, just like we did previously. And left, we want this also to be at 50%. And then what we're going to do is, I didn't want to turn this into a CSS, but this is something very handy to help. So it won't be a full tutorial, but it will be very helpful. What I'm going to do is use something called transform. And what this transform does is it lets you take this spinner and do something with it. And what we're going to do is we are going to translate it. And this is what's going to make this work. So you need the circle, the spinner part to actually do something and modify and change itself. And then you need the background, that spinner circle, to transform and rotate and change. So let's look at what else we have here. We already have it set to none, I think. Yeah, we don't need to set it. Yeah, that should be good for our spinner, actually. I don't think we need to do anything else for our spinner, but now we need to look at this spinner circle. And our spinner circle needs to have a border. Now, Bootstrap already did this for us, so we are replacing that Bootstrap piece with this. So we need to ensure that this thing actually has a border. And let's give this border a width of 8 pixels for now. And let's make it solid. And then let's use some of our branding for Prairie HR. Let's find this color here. Okay, so let's use a hex color, and this is going to be E19. There it is. Okay, so that's going to be the base border for our circle. And then what we're going to need to do is set a border at a top, or it could be left or bottom or whatever, but we'll just put it up here at top. This is the part that we're going to want to kind of move around. And let's give this a color of, let's see, do we have it here? This one. So this is that off color brown here. So now if we just do nothing with this, we're going to have a circle that's dark and that's light. And let's continue on with this border radius though, because it's going to need to be different. We just can't leave that radius. We got to give it some sort of radius width here. We'll make that 50% for now. And when we get done with this, you'll have a code to where you can change some of this to actually make it fit your need. And what we're doing right now, this 50% border radius is making it curve. Because what we're wanting is this piece here to actually curve instead of be a square border. And let's give it a width property. We'll give it a width property. Let's just do it in pixels right now. And a height. Let's do that also in pixels. 50 should work. Now what we need to do is to get this thingy to spin. And we can do that by selecting animation and setting that animation to spin 1 second, should be fine, 1s, and we want it to go linear, and then we have to tell it for how long we want it to do, and we just want it to be infinite. We just want it to keep on going, because it's not actually going to stop until this thing gets shut down. So even though this overlay is going to be set to none, this thing is going to still be spinning, but it's not going to take any performance at all. We don't have that much going on in the background to where this is going to impact anything. Okay, so we have that. So now what we need to do is use this keyframes. Let's go over here to our Bootstrap code and just make sure that our keyframes, because they should be using keyframes as well to get it to do something. Scroll down here. Okay, here we go, keyframes. So what it's doing is, yep, it's using transform, rotate, 360. And then this thing, and then the spinner grow. So yep, they're kind of doing the same thing. I'm not going to do that. I'll do something different. Okay, cool. So our keyframes should not be messing up their keyframes. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to need to grab this spin piece. And let's set it at, or not set it, but let's grab the 0%. So when it's at 0, we want to transform. And what we want it to do is to rotate. And we want it to rotate 0 degrees. Now there's a reason why we have to do this. And again, it's not going to be a CSS, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds about the animation and the transform. Just know if you want it to complete a full circle, you're going to need it at a 0 and 100%. So we need a piece there. Okay, that's good. And all this is it's the same exact thing. I'm just doing it differently. It's that. I'm just trying to keep it thin. Okay, and then we need 100%. And this 100% is going to transform, rotate 100. Nope, not 100 degrees, excuse me, 360 degrees. And this should not be a space here. There we go. You'll see the color changed. Okay, so let's see. We have our keyframes, our spinner circle, our spinner, and then our overlay. So let's save this and see what we got going on. Okay, looks like it's saving the project. Looks like it's taking a second. Okay, save failed. It's unfortunate. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so let's try this and see what we got. So our spinner should look completely different. Okay, good. See, there you go. I'll refresh that again. It's doing the same exact thing. So now we have a way, and you can change that color, of course, to anything that you want. But this is one way that if you're looking at Bootstrap here, and nothing wrong with Bootstrap. I mean, we could easily just throw that on there. I just like having it a little bit personalized, because once you start playing with the CSS, a spinner rotating, in our case, is just pure CSS. We're using CSS to make it spin. And since we're using CSS, we can actually create different animations. And I'm hoping with this, what I've done was spurred your curiosity to start working with CSS to not only transform things, but to also animate things. And you can, hopefully that spurs further curiosity to where you can start dipping into things called SVG, which then it's called section vector graphics. And you can start, really getting into cool designs, cool shapes, and getting it to do things. I have no idea. Before you send me an email, I have no idea how to do the bunny bouncing around a tree as a spinner. No clue on that one. But when you look at this, you can just look at here. You can look at this and just tell that this is, it's different. It's a personalized, not personalized, but it's unique. And that's really something, just a little tidbit of information. So I hope you can play with that. But we now have a fully functioning spinner. It fires when we need it to fire. And I hope that this was informative. If it was, like always, hit that subscribe button. Send us an email if you want to know more information or have any other questions about it. And until next time, please take care.